this era, there is no doubt that things such as laptops, computers, phones, whatever, has become our primary need. A few years ago, those things are considered privilege. But now, it is nearly impossible to see someone without a phone in their hand. Because, as we all know,
the 21st century is a digital book.
You can study, listen to music, watch movies, work, read novels, pay your rent, like literally everything through your phone or laptop, even spying on people. But how did this all started? Well, this. No. Not the lovely Dr. Watson over here, but this. The typewriter. Typewriter is used for, well, type. It is first invented in the 17th century. At that time, it was not called typewriter. Not yet. It was called typographer. But back to the typewriter. The exact definition of typewriter, if you open your Oxford Dictionary, is a typewriter is a machine with keys for producing alphabetical characters, numerals, and typographical symbols one at a time on paper inserted around a roller. Now that you know, let's dive into the deep dark history of typewriter. The concept of typewriter dates back to 1714 when an Englishman, Henry Mill, filed a vaguely worded patent for an artificial machine or method for the impressing or transcribing of letters singly or progressively one after another. But the first typewriter that actually worked was built by an Italian, Pellegrino Terri, in 1808, which he made for his blind friend, Countess Carolina Fantoni da Pipizano. It's really not clear what is actually the nature of their relationship. However, in one of her letters that was addressed for him, she addressed him as "my dear friend." Right. Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
1829, William Austin Bird typographer. The next patent for a writing machine went to William Bird in 1829. The writing machine was indeed exorbitant with a dial in place of keys. However, it is kind of slow, even slower than human writing hand. Still, this machine is the first known model of its kind and opened the door for similar inventions to emerge. 1865, the Hansen writing ball or Schreibkugel. The Hansen writing ball was invented in 1865 by Rasmus Mayling Hansen, the director of the Royal Institute for Deaf and Mute in Copenhagen. It was patented and entered in production in 1870. It is the first typewriter to be commercially sold. 1867, the prototype by John Pratt from Alabama. It was presented to the Society of Art in London and the Royal Society in 1867. An article about the invention was published in July 7, 1866 about him in an issue of Scientific American magazine. Since then, this invention has inspired many other inventors of typewriters. It was patented in August 11, 1868 in the United States. 1873, Scholes and Glidden typewriter. It was first patented in 1868 by Christopher Latham Scholes, or we can call him as the father of American typewriter. He had the help of his partner, Scholes and Carolus. The work began in 1867. Even though Scholes' name was on this, he actually left the enterprise shortly. After the original prototype, investors James Dansberg bought the rights to the machine from Scholes and brought it to Remington and Sons gun makers in 1873 to mass purchase it. An engineer from the company added the foot treadle for the carriage return. This model was slow and inefficient and only sold 5,000 models. However, it introduced the concept of typewriting and opened the door for better, faster models to come.
After the invention of the second Remington on 1878, in 1880, George Yost, one of the contributors of Scholes and Glidden typewriter, modified the machine into the calligraph. This version, though an improvement, was still flawed. The issue is the printing process and the keys. However, the calligraph hit the market in 1880, and Yost and Walker's company was the second manufacturer in history to produce typewriter. In 1881, Hamilton built the first typewriter, which have proportionately spaced keys, called Hamilton Automatic. The machine was made with miniature type bars that would perform an intricate motion between the ink pad and the paper in order to leave their mark. Sadly, these typewriters never became popular, and the production ceased with the introduction of Columbia Index, a model with the same design but more efficient. Still in the year of 1881, Thomas Hall invented the Hall typewriter. It was the first index model of the typewriter and the most popular. It manufactured by the Hall Typewriter Company in New York in the beginning of 1881. In this type, letters could be selected using an index card under a frame with holes, giving the model its name. The production of this model began in New York and continued until the 20th century. In the following year, 1882, there were invented the second type of calligraph typewriter. This model was less superfluous, less noisy, and less cumbersome. This design was found to be exponentially more popular and easier to use. Though numerous models existed by now, these designs, the ones based off of Scholl's first machine, remained the most popular. The Calligraph II, the second and the lightest model of the company, was the first typewriter to have a fully keyboard in 1882. It was a double-sized keyboard because the machine was rated for case-sensitive keys. In 1884, James Bartlett Hammond had invented the Hammond typewriter and became the only true competition on the Remington 1 or calligraph. The hardened rubber keys could be replaced easily, and the semi-circular type shuttle and turret are concepts that would be adopted in all typewriters. When the key was pushed, a vertical pin would rise at the same time that the type shuttle turned, and the shuttle would be stopped by the upraised pin. The spring would release, the hammer strike, and voila, a letter would appear. In 1885, there were invented the new model of Crandall typewriter by Lucian Crandall, who patented his first typewriter invention in 1875. The Crandall was the first typewriter using a single element type sleeve that turned into position when a key was pressed. The Crandall was a quite successful machine in that era. The next is velocraph. It is invented in 1886, the first Switzerland typewriter invented by Adolphe Prosper Aegis. It followed very closely the design of William Byrd and his typographer, with a dial as opposed to keys. It produced by Rimtod Prince & C., Geneva, Switzerland. The velocraph has an extendable carriage rail that slides away when it's not used. In the next year, 1887, had been invented the pocket typewriter. And the fun fact is, as the name is suggests, this typewriter can fit in your pocket. Cool, huh? You can bring it everywhere. It is actually the smallest typewriter ever invented. It was only 10 cm length and boasting a weight of 4.5 oz or 120 grams, if you wonder. The quality of the writing produced with the pocket of typewriter depended completely on the even-handedness of the operator. A sample of the writing of the pocket typewriter was found on the bottom of the case, where the original owner apparently wrote his own name. The pocket typewriter was marketed in France as the Polyglot. Then it continued to be sold well into the 1890s.
1888, the Yost first. George Yost had been involved with the Scholes and Glidden typewriter with the calligraph, manufactured by the Yost Writing Machine Company, Bridgeport, USA. It was a blind writing, abstract machine, but with a new superior mechanism. the YOS was equipped with a full keyboard like a calligraph, with separate keys for upper and lowercase characters. Here's the picture. 1889. Victor. The Victor is first daisy wheel typewriter produced by Victor Typewriter Company in Boston, USA. Rubber type is placed inside the metal daisy wheel and pushed against the paper with a spring-driven hammer. The index pointer turns the daisy wheel when moved along the index, inking by two small ink pads. And here's the picture. 1893. Blickenderver 5. The first portable typewriter was invented in 1891 and introduced in 1893 by George C. Blinken. It has scientific keyboard instead of the QWERTY, which was less effective according to Blinken. The machine was available with a QWERTY keyboard also, but only on request. And here's the picture. 1895. The Ford typewriter. It is the first typewriter to use aluminum in its construction, produced by Ford Typewriter Company, New York, USA. The machine was produced in iron and completely built of aluminum. The most striking feature of the Ford it is spectacular ornamental cover. Noteworthy is also the spacebar with integrated fix and the cap keys. The Ford was commercial failure and it's very rare. And here's the picture. 1897. Jewett. The white keys are for small and black for uppercase letters and digits. Here's the picture. 1899. Saturn. The blind writing Saturn is one of the most impractical machines ever, built with proverbial precision in Switzerland. The Saturn has only 9 E-shaped type bars, 4 on each side under the carriage, and the nin swings up from behind. Exactly in the middle, each type bar holds 8 characters, which are by moving wire across the index card with the large selector button on the left. The lowercase character will laid out differently from the capitals, making work on the Saturn even more complicated. Yeah, impractical is putting it mildly. Here's the picture. 19,000 until 1907, the Shelton 6 improved. This is the first electric typewriter produced commercially. It was not a great success because at the time electricity had not been standardized and voltage differed from other city to city. Well, the Salter 6 remained in production for a full 6 years until the Shelter 7 was introduced in 1907. And here's the picture.
Early 19th century until 1907, Oliver typewriter. In the same timeline aside from the Salter 6, there was also the Oliver typewriter, invented by the Canadian revolutionist Thomas Oliver. The machine would live to be one of the most lasting alternatives of the regular front stroke typewriter. Although the production in the USA ended in 1928, the British Oliver typewriter would continue to the production of the downstroke until the World War II. 1917. The Fox Portable One. The Fox Typewriter Company had been producing impressive machines since 1898, and in 1917 it launched the first collapsible typewriter. The carriage of the Fox collapsed and slid backwards, making it the first portable machine. Basically, this is the 1917 versions of laptop. The company produced the highly successful folding Corona was not amused and sued. While the company was sued for design thefts, this machine was a glimmer for the future possibilities for portable writing, leading those inventions to next messaging and iPhone. I guess it's kind of cool that a lawsuit can turn into the inventions of iPhone. Around 1919, the portable Corona 3. The Corona 3 replaced the standard folding in 1912. It was one of the most successful machines in typewriter history, with more than 600,000 machines built and sold over a period of almost 30 years. The machine presented here was built around 1919. In the late 1920s, Corona introduced a range of Corona specials in different bright colors like red, green, and blue. The design also have forward folding carriage remained the same through the decades. In 1926, the Corona factory merged with the L.C. Smith Typewriter Company to form the Smith Corona Company. The Corona Company produced a number of special accessories for the machine, such as the label holder and a special tripod that allowed the machine literally to be used in the field. The tripod also had a fold-out section on the side for copy or notes. 1920 until 1925, the Remington Portable No. 1. 1925 until 1928, the Remington Portable No. 2. This is the first electric typewriter that is a huge success in the United States. 1933, the electromatic typewriter. Earlier versions of the typewriter required a lot of force to create an indent of a letter on the paper. But by using electricity to the type responded to the slightest touch, making text more professional and the typing less painful. The electromagnetic brand typewriter was manufactured by the International Business Machines Corporation beginning in 1935. The electromagnetic typewriter was first manufactured in 1924 by the Northeast Electric Company. Also in 1935, IBM produced the electromagnetic model No. 1 for the first time. The electromagnetic operated with a motor controlling all aspects of typing, from the type bar to the carriage returns, allowing the users to operate the typewriter without their fingers ever leaving the keyboard.
Next, we have the telegraphic typewriter. The telegraphic typewriter was invented in 1945. This was a typewriter that included a special keyboard and paper attachment, like this. Next, we have the selector typewriter in 1961. It produced by IBM, and the selector typewriter used a revolving type ball instead of the ocean of individual type bars, referred to as a curveball or wallet. In place of the usual movable carriage, it took over 3/4 of the US market. The manufacturing facility expected to make 20,000 selector typewriters in its first year. By the end of 1961, they had ordered for 80,000, and by 1986, more than 30 million selector typewriters had been sold. For more than 25 years, the selector was the typewriter found on most office desks. Next is the Canon TypeStar 110 in late 1980s. Next is further WP1 in 1980. So that's all the history of the writer. Now, you know the invention of the writer. Of course, it becomes an inspiration to other machines. What are they? Let's find out. First is computer. Who doesn't know computer? This machine is inspired by typewriter. The typewriter has come a long way over the year, all leading into the age of computer and the most widely used input device, the computer keyboard, and the first computers and also the computer keyboards were created before the electric as computer gained in popularity. Next is the QWERTY keyboard. This kind of keyboard was created by Christopher Soles in 1868, and now it becomes the most common type of keyboard used. You know, it's also known as the universal keyboard. Then, all of them opened the evolution of laptop and finally phone that we have now or use. After we know about the history and also the machine that inspired the typewriter, you must be curious about the effect of typewriter in society. Let's talk about it.
Now, let's talk about the effect of typewriter in society. As its function to ease human burden in writing, typewriter has helped the society to have easier life. The inventions of typewriter surely affecting many fields related to typing things, starting from typing personal letters, writing story or news, to writing in the offices. Let's talk further about the effect of typewriter in society. As the popularity of typewriter increased, so too did opportunities for women in the workplace. Because wages earned by freelance typists were too low for men, so the positions were offered mostly to women.
Good old sexism at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Typing classes soon expanded to include shorthand lessons. The skills of the typing students were offered along with the typewriters when the machines were sold. The typewriter gave women jobs in the office and an opportunity to work as freelance typewriters in the offices where a full-time use for the machine wasn't visible yet. In that sense, the inventions of the typewriter play a major role in eventually giving women economic power and a greater right in the labor force, business, and economy as a whole. Besides that, the inventions of the typewriter make advertising and other forms of promotions led the way. As the typewriter became a new business in technologies, many companies started to advertise their machines in their own way. In the early advertisements of typewriter, the company usually paint their product picture with its rank and price just like this. When the business getting tight, some company has some foxy ways in selling their product. After the unpublished autobiography of Mark Twain released with the mentions of him using typewriter and the fact that Mark Twain used typewriter to type letter to his brother, it triggered Remington Typewriter Company to make use of it. And proudly, the company cited Mark Twain's unpublished autobiography to their poster and tada! Surely they know how to make use of famous name. When the typewriter is commonly used in the office and the rising of women secretary, the way of advertising is evolving. They might think that the picture of product alone would be rather bland, and so they put women alongside their product. The advertisement not only selling their product but somehow also mentioning how easy the typewriter to use that women can do it. However, not all company putting women in their advertisement in usual way. Some advertisements sexualize women in a way they picture them in sexy legs clad with stocking while working on a typewriter, just like this, and okay, let's stop talking about legs. It's about the typewriter. And what's the effect of typewriter on journalism? New practices and new devices certainly were being brought to newsroom. The journalists start using typewriter to type down the story they got. Before the typewriter was found, people wrote out news by hand and mailed it. Can you just imagine? This could take a long time to get news spread, and by the time it reached people, usually the news become old news. By the inventions of the typewriter, the methods of journalism are changing. New practices and new devices were being brought to newsroom, and the term of modern journalism appears. The inventions of the typewriter led small business into media scenes. It allowed them to produce more writing and reach out to more people.
Next up, let's talk about the involvement of typewriters in the literature world. As typewriter accepted as a modern way of typing things, so some publishers and editors of mass media decided to change new things about their way of accepting manuscript or literature works from the authors. Here's the things. So they don't want to accept handwriting manuscript anymore, but instead they only accept the manuscript that is typed by a typewriter. So the authors cannot submit their handwork anymore. They have to type their works through type machine, or we so-called typewriter, in many ways. So it's not only applied to the authors, but it also applies to the stenographer, who is the assistant of the authors, helping them taking notes or maybe rewrite their manuscript into new ones. So they have to rewrite the author's manuscript into typewritten manuscripts. So that's just like kill two birds with one stone. Thank you, typewriters. Aside from the literature world, typewriter has also given a big influence in the industry life in America. Invention of typewriter began a new light in the industry era, or we can say the revolution industry, which was a war of technology invention. However, making a typewriter is not a simple task. Aside from the mechanisms, early typewriters requires a lot of materials such as metal, wood, rubber, and plastic. and that's one of the reasons why Christopher have his patent bought by Remington and Sons Company. That requires a lot of money. And actually, Remington and Sons Company is a company that produce guns and firearms. That's why they have a lot of money, and it able to provide the mine materials such as metal for making screw bolts and pawls. Then after it, Remington became more popular, and so the other competitors start to pop in, such as IBM or International Business Machine Corporations, and then we have Oliver Typewriter Company, Olivetti, and so much more. There's a goal, you can find it there. And bit by bit, the typewriter has boasted so many improvements, and the most advanced typewriter is called the electric typewriter. It comes to the society alongside its electricity partnership. But it wasn't long until it met the next level of technology attack: computer. Computer able to access work easier and faster, and so it overturned typewriter from its throne. Sure, not all places are accepting computers because the electricity and portable matter. So what happened to the companies that produced this typewriters machine? So the company did a very different action. Some keep producing typewriters, and because some company ini dikat ya. Some company accept new change and embrace the computers modern way of computers, and some others like. We also say the plumbing of the typewriter industry is also make a new kind of job again, such as a repairman specialized in repairing typewriters. So many people using typewriter, many typewriters broken and needs repairment, so they come to the repairman, and one of the repair company that is famous in America is Grimsey Typewriter Company. That has been exists for 80 years, and the fun fact is they have been fixing typewriters that's owned by Tom Hanks and some shippers. Maybe you want to go there and repair your typewriters if you.
Typewriter nowadays. With the existence of newcomers such as computer and smartphone, surely typewriter has to come down from its throne. But human doesn't forget its merit in machine history. There are a lot of museums that display many kinds of typewriters as antiques or historical machine. And here are the list of museums and the picture. First, Typewriter Museum Peter Midhover. Second, the Liverpool Typewriter Museum. The Chestnut Ridge Typewriter Museum. Martin Howard Collection of Early Typewriters. Technical Museum of the Impoda. Typewriter Museum in Lausanne. Lu Hanbin Typewriter Museum in Shanghai. And Watten's Typewriter Museum. However, not all typewriter is resting at museum. Some people and institutions are still using them. For example, Swinta Corporation from USA still produces typewriters for prisoners who are not allowed to use computer. Their main markets are China, Japan, and Indonesia, who will not permit their prisoners for accessing any document. Second, Brother from UK issued to still produce typewriters in 2012. And then Boyce and Godrej and Royce from India, who is known as the biggest market for mechanical typewriter in 2011. And then the second-hand market for typewriters, whether it is for the use of or for personal collection. Well, that's all we know about typewriter. Please keep in mind that this video is a work of a bunch of students trying to pass their English, social literature, and history course. So if you mind any mistakes, please do forgive us, and you may leave it to the comment section below. The credits goes to hardworking students Devi Puspitasari, Zulaikha Ira Puspita, Diavita Anjelina, Eva Nur Fauziyah, Cinthia Trisnawati, Zahrotul Nur Azizah, Izza Indriyana, Rohi Qimmahtum, Balqis Terria Cardina. And we also thank to the author that has written bunch of journals and articles to help us finish this video.